Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Thank you for being here. Today is Tuesday, June 6th. Certainly glad that you're here joining us. We'll start our meeting by introducing you to your City Council.
Councilmember Selberg.
Present.
Starr.
Here.
Staley.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Erpenbach.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Neitzert. Rolfing.
Here.
Councilors, thank you very much. Appreciate it. In Sioux Falls, we start our City Council meetings with an invocation. Pastor Kirk Flaw is back to do that invocation, and I thank you, Pastor, for being here. He is from Abiding Savior Free Lutheran Church here in Sioux Falls. What we'd ask is that you stand for the pastor's invocation, and then please remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Kirk?
Well, I would like to begin, too. It's always a joy to be able to come down and to share with you, and I like to share a verse just real briefly. Psalm 103, verse 2 says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget none of his benefits." And I realize even tonight the blessing it is to be able to come and to be able to pray and to encourage, to be able to vote for our leaders, to be able to honor and acknowledge those in our community, our police force. We have school representation tonight. There's a huge blessing and a benefit that we derive. I think sometimes we take these things too lightly. And on behalf of our congregation, on behalf of our community, I want to thank all of you as public servants who serve graciously and tirelessly. And we appreciate all that you do. I recognize that not everybody agrees with everything we all do. And yet we're all in it together, and we're grateful for that. And I'm thankful to be able to come tonight and open with a word of prayer. Lord, I ask for your mercies tonight upon this gathering. And we do pray for unity and for peace and for grace in all things. I pray for wisdom tonight for these individuals who are making decisions. I give thanks for the many within our community that labor upon our behalf. And I pray, God, that we would not take lightly the benefits that you grant to us through them. I thank you for our school system. I thank you for our police force and law enforcement. I thank you for these leaders, Lord, that have been elected, that guide and lead this city. Thank you for our mayor, and thank you for all those, Lord, who come together this night to make decisions and to set course for our city. We love our city, and we give thanks for it. We ask now, Lord, your favor and your blessing and your mercies upon this evening. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
My kids were Boy Scouts, so whenever we did the Pledge of Allegiance, they would say two. It's been 100 years since then, and I still don't.
Don't forget the pacifier. You want to come up too? Come on up. Yeah, come on up. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Certainly pleased to have so many in attendance. I appreciate it. I've got Devon Joseph here. Devon Joseph here. And Devon has asked me to read a proclamation. But Devon, before I do that, would you please just introduce yourself along with your family? And, why are you here today?
Well, as he said, I'm Devon Joseph. This is my wife, Brooke, and my daughter, Amari. I'm just a passionate citizen here in Sioux Falls that want to bring attention to an event that we've been doing for the past couple of years called Juneteenth. Juneteenth is just the anniversary of all the last slaves being freed in this country. And I just think it's something that can bring us together. I mean, there's a huge, I guess I could say passion and a lot of people that I know that take part in this event every year. We just want to see it grow. We want to see the community come out and show support for it, and just something we can look forward to every year.
Thanks, Dylan. Thank you. The proclamation reads, whereas Juneteenth is the celebration of the anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, which was issued by U.S. President Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863. The proclamation gave the Southern slaves their freedom and is considered an important benchmark in the African-American struggle for freedom and equality. Whereas the word Juneteenth comes from the words June and 19th, which according to the Southern folklore is when the slaves of Texas first learned of their freedom. Though technically freed in 1863, the slaves did not learn of their freedom until the arrival of the Union soldiers on June 19th, 1865. This was after the end of the Civil War and 2.5 years after the proclamation was actually first issued. Whereas the Emancipation Proclamation is considered the catalyst that ended slavery. But at the time the proclamation was issued, it really did not free anyone, since the Confederate States did not recognize President Lincoln's authority. It was not until the Civil War ended that the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, ratified in 1865, officially outlawed slavery. Whereas Juneteenth began as a celebration by ex-slaves and has continued to be a widely celebrated event across the United States among all nationalities. Recently, there have been efforts to bring a wider audience to the celebration in Sioux Falls and in South Dakota. Now, therefore, I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim June 19th of this year, 2017, as Juneteenth 2017 in Sioux Falls. Devon, thank you for your leadership. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. Thanks for bringing your beautiful family. Let's give Devon a round of applause, please. Thank you.
Also, we have a Juneteenth event at USF on June 11th. Granted, conflict of the 19th, but still celebrating Juneteenth on June 11th. USF at 1 o'clock. So come on out. It's a free event. Bring your friends, family. Everybody's invited.
June 11th, 1 o'clock at USF. Where at USF, Devon?
At the Stewart Center.
At the Stewart Center. All right, we'll see everybody there. Thank you. Okay, quick picture. Here we go. Thank you. Good job. Thanks. Oh, hey, you can see a superintendent? Well, I voted today. Yes, thank you. Take care. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to pass it on to Councilor Kiley.
Thank you very much. I've had the privilege of talking with Dr. Maher a few weeks ago at an event that we were both attending, and he so kindly requested at that time that he address Sioux Falls City Council because he wanted to honor our city's finest who are seated here in the front row for the fine service that they provide to the school district. And I can state that I, too, was a recipient of that service as a 33-year member of the Sioux Falls School District, and I know what a difference that you men and women make in our school systems. So at this point, I'd like to recognize Dr. Brian Maher. Welcome.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the conversation and helping make this this night come about. I thought the pastor was right on when he said this was about blessings. I thought, perfect, because that's what I want to talk to you about tonight, are some blessings that have happened. I'm going to use a 2-year snapshot because that's how long I've been in the community. At the end of this month will be 2 full years. And two years ago, I had a plan to meet a lot of people and to reach out to learn about the systems and the ecosystem that is the city of Sioux Falls. But before I could reach out to the city, the mayor had reached out to me and said, why don't you come in and let me talk to you about the city. I did so willingly. One of the very first things I did was come to City Hall, and the mayor set time up for me with a number of departments. Certainly at that time showed me that he was not only in somebody who was behind the city, but also an advocate for our schools. So, Mayor, thank you for that 2-year and ongoing commitment. From there, as part of those meetings, I had a chance to meet Chief Bartell and begin to develop that unique relationship with the police department. That relationship, of course, was pre-existing long before I got here, but it was my opportunity to see it as the superintendent of schools. Shortly after that, Chief Bartell retired, and I tried not to take that personally, but I had an opportunity then to meet with Chief Burns, and the transition was incredibly smooth. But the biggest thing I would say from that is, whether it be the mayor whether it now be Chief Burns, we have easy access to the police department, and that's so important for the safety of our city in general and of our schools specifically. When you think about our school system, between our students and our adults, we have over 28,000 humans who occupy our buildings every day, and that's larger than most communities in our state. And so it's quite an undertaking from a security point of view. And so that relationship is critical. It was very comforting when I first met with Chief Burns to talk about the SRO program, and knowing while I was trying to inform him what it was, he very kindly listened to me, but I found out that in that two-person dialogue, I was the salutatorian. He was the valedictorian. He knew far more about that SRO program than I could ever imagine to know. I took great comfort in that. From there, what I'd really like to talk to you about are three issues that have happened over the last 2 years that nobody would ever know about, except the people in uniform behind me and a few people from the school district. But the issues and the way they were handled are so incredibly important to our school district. One was a couple of years ago. There was a bomb threat that came in. It was a cyber issue, and one that only as a school district we're ill-equipped to handle. So I got on the phone right away with Sergeant Osterquist and said, talked to him about the situation, what we had. And I will tell you, we had 10, maybe 12 phone calls, me to him, him to me, that particular night. And as I thought through what those phone calls meant to me, I would tell you that he mentored me, he counseled me, and in many ways he consoled me. Because I had to make a decision based on the information we had as to whether or not we were going to bring kids in to one specific school that next day. And that's a decision that looms heavy when you're worried about safety and security. But by the end of our conversation, I knew that not only were we going to have school the next day, but we were going to be confident in the security that we had to have school the next day. But it was only after many, many phone calls and involving many other people that that decision was arrived at. Two events happened within the last couple of months that prompted me to say, I need to go say thank you. Writing a note would be important, but I think that what I have to say is also important for our public to know about the service we receive from the city, but tonight specifically from the police department. So the second issue that I want to talk to you about tonight is a threat that we received a couple of months ago. And the threat came in because one of our teachers was on social media, and by the time it got to me, it was about midnight. Well, my first call was to Sergeant Osterquist, and I don't know what his hours are, but I know they're not 8 to 4, and I don't know if he ever sleeps because he's always awake whenever I call. But we began this conversation on that particular night about the issues that came up. And again, we had a situation of, is it okay to have school tomorrow? Now, at midnight, it's hard to get a lot of people and a lot of information to make those decisions. But Sergeant Osterquist, the police department, were tremendous at helping us try to navigate what we were going to do the next day. We had a number of school people involved. And at 4:30 that morning, from midnight when I found out to 4:30 that morning, we had a number of conversations, and at 4:30 we had a conference call to determine our plan of actions. Again, we had school. We confidently had school. We had an increased police presence at that school. And we had school, and we had it in a safe and secure manner that next day. Just 2 weeks ago, I got information at about 10:30 at night. I don't know why these things don't happen at 5 p.m., but about 10:30 at night. And on this one, we had information that actually came through the police department to us to say, you need to know about this. And it was kind of a social media frenzy. And what we had was a lot of information because of the due diligence of the police department, going to homes, talking with kids, talking to parents, in a number of homes and a number of communications back to the school district that night. What we realized we were dealing with wasn't a threat, but rather we were dealing with misinformation, and that was very comforting. So again, the next day, we had school without worry that we were putting anybody's lives in danger. My point, I could regale you with a number of stories like that because it hasn't just been those three, it's been a number. And luckily for our community, most people don't know about these things because they're handled efficiently, they're handled with professionalism and excellence, and that's why I'm here tonight, is to say thank you to the City Council for making sure that that excellence can happen. Thank you, Mayor, for making sure that excellence can happen. And tonight specifically, thanks to all of the people in uniform who make that happen for us. And thank you tonight for these people who are here. I'd ask Chief Burns to come forward. And just as a small token of appreciation, I'd like to give a plaque that was made at our CTE Academy. I got to give a shout out to our kids at the CTE Academy. And the plaque says, with grateful appreciation for outstanding support and partnership in keeping our public schools safe, Sioux Falls Police Department, School Resource Officer Program, and the Sioux Falls School District, thank you. June 6th, 2017. So thanks to all of you, and Chief, thanks to you and the people in uniform.
Dr. Maher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Chief Burns, while you're here, would you mind introducing the members of your team that are here tonight, please? Would you come on up and just introduce them, please?
Thank you, Mayor. We have Captain Richard Miller. We have SRO Jason Larson, Sergeant David Osterquist, SRO Michelle Paulson, and SRO Sergeant Jason Leach.
Very good. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you again. Dr. Maher, again, thank you for all you do as well. Welcome to our town. Glad you're here. We'll now move to our consent agenda, folks. Council, any motions, changes to the consent agenda?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Selberg.
Councilor Rolfing's been a motion to approve our consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Selberg. No discussion. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Our regular agenda tonight, any changes to that, Council?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Rolfing's been a motion to approve our agenda tonight, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. If no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Council, that has also passed 7-0. Thank you. Folks, again, welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. We are certainly pleased by the turnout. Thank you so much. This is an opportunity for you to engage the council. It's called our public input portion. Come on up. You can talk about really any topic that's of importance to you. If it is an agenda item later on, we'd ask you to wait for that. Couple things. Please just introduce yourself to the people of our town. Secondly, please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Thirdly, we would ask you address the body as a whole, the council as a whole, versus individual members of this team. And then last but not least, we would just ask that you be respectful in your demeanor. No need to be derogatory, no need to raise your voice, no need to shout. I know the emotions can run high every now and then, but we just ask you to consider that. So, folks, would anybody want to engage the council? Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. I am Stephen Ciano, and I'd like to read from the letter I sent you all today, who I am and why I seek your involvement and assistance, briefly. Since childhood, I've been advanced intellectually and creatively while socially deficient, symptomatic of an autism spectrum neurological variance called Asperger's syndrome. Relative to this condition, I read on a high school level in elementary school, won scholastic awards, skipped ahead in school before testing out of high school early. I also quit fighting, quit religion, rituals, and eating meat for ethical reasons. Yes, I was different. I was misled into contracting with the USN in California in 1976, whereupon I was labeled homosexual and set up to be killed for being different. An ensuing, seemingly hopeless, prolonged, and life-threatening assault despite continued superior performance, eventually resulted in my emotional breakdown and disability as of March 2nd, 1978, for which I was then hospitalized and discharged with a denial of the disability and its causation. Starting with VA in California in 78, despite proof available in USN records, multiple public and private disability, mental health, medical, and advocacy entities refused to review records to consider my report of fraud and obstructionism, as well as attempted murder of me by USN personnel as valid, causing me and my children and their mother much suffering. Citing PTSD and secondary physical disability in South Dakota in 2002, although soon confirmed, VA, SSA, and others continue to misrepresent my condition and situation so as to cause me harm and death. Well, I didn't die. Somebody help me, and I'm here today to speak of it and hopefully get your help. Perhaps in response to my citing my legal standing in a refused appeal attempt in 2004, a psychiatrist, that was in a VA, but a psychiatrist in Southeastern Behavioral Health Care, in apparent collusion, declared me out of the blue in known opposition to evidence of wrongfully denied disability with PTSD since 78 as diagnosed with sudden onset of delusional disorder. So to cover the pre-existing false not disabled label, they invented this. And subsequently, despite further proof presented to them by me and my therapist as well, they consequently then declared me incompetent due to delusional disorder, which they knew I didn't have, and sent a reported $300,000 to a third party, not legally available to me because it was identity theft. It is theft by fraud as a part of an assault on me, an attempted murder of me. So I've been reaching out to people, and the rest is written in this letter, and it is a very upsetting and terrifying situation. I've been followed by these people. They've shown up at my apartment and terrorized me in various ways. I've been deprived of medical care, and I've been trying to get adequate medical care arranged for me because I can't trust the VA through Falls Community Health. I'm trying to get them to get records, and I've elicited the help, tried to get the help of city attorney on this, which I've revealed to you before. So you now have it in writing, this summary of the situation. So I hope that more will be done. Thank you.
Thank you for your service, Stephen. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
I wanted to address a subject that's been going on here now with the ambulance service, et cetera, but I have another.
Sir, could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, excuse me, Robert Colby, Sioux Falls. The county commission had a, what would you call, a real brouhaha several years ago when the fair board was not looking after what the people said they should and doing all the things that were due diligent. Now the fair, and I happen to sit on the fair board with a number of other people, some of the luminaries of the city. We had, I think it was 2 bank presidents and the mayor sat on the fair board, and that was during the time when the fair was not making any money. No matter what happened, it always seemed to just break even. Well, the fair board had an audit done every year of the books that were taken care of by someone who was hired by the fair. One thing led to another. We just couldn't get ahead of the curve on that particular endeavor. The auditors always came up with findings, but they never found anything that was really awry. After I left, the county commission decided that maybe it needed an audit, but they did a forensic audit. And when they did that, that's when they found that there was about $500,000 had evaporated. That was approximately the same time as the Westward Ho Country Club had someone do the same thing to them. One of the county commissioners said that the board ought to be more diligent and do what they needed to do in order to take care of the shortcomings. Well, one of the things that happens when you ask questions, you get answers, but you don't always get the answers that are appropriate. When they did the forensic audit, they found out more than they ever thought they wanted to know. People were fired, and it was new people were hired, and off they went, and now they're in good shape. Now, the ambulance service, Fitch was aboard when the county and the city decided to do the 911 joint endeavor. Fitch had a good reputation, but it looks like they're riding on their reputation now and not necessarily being, how would you say, as straightforward as possible, because there seems to be a little more interplay between the ambulance service here and the Fitch and how they do business between themselves. Now, if the KELO can come up and find some shortcomings in the ambulance service, then it starts to generate some distrust. When REMSA, if they should be aware of all of these shortcomings, they should be passing that information up to the next level. If they don't feel comfortable, which they shouldn't, they should be passing up their discomfort to the city council and or the mayor. And probably the only way you're going to recoup any of the trust that some of us have in the ambulance service would be to hire an independent attorney who's either a CPA and or an auditor or has audit capabilities, and just find out what is really happening. Because with the Fair Board, when they were taking money there, no one was hurt, there was no blood, no one died. But if you don't have an appropriate ambulance service, someone can come up a little bit short. Someone can be hurt, someone can die. It could be any one of you, it could even be me. And that's not what you need to have as a confidence in the city's oversight of this particular service. Whatever the findings might be by an independent person would be what would restore confidence to the system. I mean, it just does not have the appropriate smell. Now, today is June 6th. 73 years ago, a lot of people died. And the closest that I can say about that, I had no family that were involved with D-Day, but there was one birth that did happen that day, and I had a brother born on that particular day. All of us are born on a day in a year, and we're born on days of commemoration, but few of us are ever born on a day that is of world significance. And with that, I just say pause and think about those who didn't make it through June 6th, 1944.
Ms. Colby, thank you. Welcome.
Mr. Mayor,
Council Chair.
just for purpose of clarification, there will be a clip that Mr. Danielson will be showing that a portion of it will be muted out of respect for copyright law and also from advice of our city attorney's office.
Okay, Council Chair, thank you.
And I've
Security,
had this video.
escort this gentleman out, please.
Come on, Soda Pop, let's go.
What?
Yes. Yes. Play. Turn the volume up. It is on. It's fine. Service is working, and the abuse that some of these people have received, it's really shocking. And it takes as I'm putting the video together and I'm getting ready to post it. The people that are running the ambulance system should be shocked. They should be appalled that they're even in this town. And this council should be appalled that these people are even here.
Is that it? Mr. Danielson, is that
More
it?
coming.
There's more coming? Okay. And your team, I want to personally apologize to you, your team. I should have been much more cognizant and much more diligent during the public input part of the meeting last week. After the meeting, I had council leadership discuss it with me, and certainly after hearing your comments tonight, I failed, and I truly apologize. I will do my best to listen more intently so that this doesn't happen again. But again, with all the things that have been going on in the country, I think the people of Sioux Falls have to understand these folks are called first responders. So they are in the same category as a police officer, as a fire person, and as again, a first responder. So, you know, anyone who threatens them with shooting or anything like that is completely inappropriate. Again, my apologies to you and to your team. And Council Chair Rolfing, my apologies to you and the council as well for letting that dialogue to take place at all. Council Chair Rolfing, I apologize. Mr. Dowson, is there more?
It's coming.
Okay.
I showed up here that night on July 5th of last year to talk about a man that had been abused by the ambulance system. And it was a Korean War vet that was suffering. He was in excruciating pain. And I still say, this body, this city should be shocked and appalled by the way he was treated. I want to thank Dr. Maher and even Bob Colby and everybody that's spoken tonight. We in no time have ever made any threats to this body whatsoever. All we're trying to do is get people to pay attention to what's going on. And I happen to know what these two individuals were doing at that moment that I was giving my presentation, and they weren't paying attention to this place. And there's these devices over there by the door. And if they want to really pay attention, or if you people have any trouble paying attention to what we're saying, these listening devices can help you hear. We didn't threaten anybody. There was no misinformation. And the Casablanca set, I had already gotten cleared for fair use. And it's up on South Dakota tonight, and you can see the entire piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dowson. Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Scott Ersman, Sioux Falls. First thing I want to say is, why don't we just give this guy what he wants? Week after week, he comes and asks for his medical records. Give them to him. Please. Drives me crazy. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about what Bruce brought up about the ambulance. I was watching the informational today. It's funny to watch somebody quote Trump about the fake news. The word phantom that was used by the media is actually language used in the contract by Paramedics Plus. It's not something the news made up. It's not fake news. Secondly, this comes down to two things. Patients and consumers don't care about Paramedics Plus contract. They don't care about their compliance. They don't care about their profit margin. You know what they care about? They want to pick up their phone, they want to call 911, and they want to get picked up in a good time. And guess how that gets fixed, friends? That gets fixed by using mutual aid. If Paramedics Plus cannot show up in a decent time when someone is having a medical emergency, 911 Metro, under your rule, should call mutual aid and have them pick them up. We don't care who makes the buck from the ride. We don't. We want to be picked up, period. I don't care about the contracts. Nobody else cares about the contracts. And number two, transparency. Nobody was told what a 980 was. They just changed the language and kept it from the public. That's why the news made a deal out of this. Transparency, folks. I keep telling you about it. It keeps just flying over your head. So think about it. The mutual aid agreements need to be signed, and they need to be signed now. And they need to be, when somebody calls an ambulance, I don't care if it's Paramedics Plus, MedStar, a county ambulance, someone needs to show up in good time and take that person to the hospital. We don't care who it is. And we really don't care how much money Paramedics Plus makes. That company is in a world of trouble right now. I don't know if you read national news, but they're being sued by the federal government in almost every state they operate in. They make me real nervous. I want to talk a little bit about, I was disappointed that Mr. Maher left. I want to talk about the election today. I got an update before I came in, and it seems like it's going to be around 5,000 votes, which is about 2% of the total voting population. Everyone keeps going, well, that's just the way it is. The election lady from the school district was bragging last night. They saved the district $16,000 on an election. You know, how long does this have to go on before we finally realize that we need to have succinct and same precincts for every election? How long? Till nobody shows up voting? Till maybe 100 people show up to vote? Is that what we want? Maybe a 0.5% turnout? I don't know why it's so hard for someone from Lincoln County, Minnehaha County, the city council, and the school district to sit at a table together and go, this is how we're going to do things. We're going to write it down. We're going to sign this piece of paperwork for the next 5 years, and in 5 years we'll review, and we'll go from there. It's not difficult. We built an event center, $125 million event center. But we can't get in a room together and figure out precincts? Wow, that's pretty amazing. Yep, so we have a big old 2% turnout. That's great. It's because of the musical precincts. And lastly, I wanted to talk about something I've been requesting and haven't been getting. I've been watching this miniseries called Genius. It's about Albert Einstein. And throughout the miniseries, constantly the scientists, when Fair Einstein comes up with a theory, they tell him to go to the chalkboard and prove it. Prove it with your numbers. And he says, oh, I will. And I asked that of the city. You can't just come in front of the news camera, tell us the event center's doing great, telling us it's got a $100 million impact on the city, and not produce us any numbers. You haven't produced anything. You haven't shown us anything of how this comes about, what formulas are being used. So I'd really like to see that. It's not that hard. Maybe get a chalkboard out. Maybe figure it out that way. Albert Einstein was able to prove relativity. So, thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Folks, anybody else, welcome.
Sierra Broussard, Sioux Falls. As you well know of Pettigrew Heights, I've been out there for a week after that shooting that has occurred. We have some real issues on Pettigrew Heights. We had 2 homicides, a stabbing, and now a shooting, gang and or drug related. I have asked the police department to please work with the community to build up a community and the police to work together to prove these crimes here. When you have drive-by shootings, it gets serious in this neighborhood here. I just live a couple blocks from there. Dakota was also hit with bullets. These people are hitting their targets. It is time for the people to face up with their drugs and to pay their drug dealers or get out the gangs here. It's a very sad situation that we're having here. Feel sorry for the police department because they're thrown into a neighborhood to try to resolve crime. We have people on the blocks, gang members trying to take over the neighborhood. If you don't believe me, just go to 14th and 13th and Prairie and back in there and Spring and see if the gangs are not trying to take over the territory. I grew up in the projects of New Orleans, and I grew up in a ghetto. And I'm not going to see my neighborhood be ghetto and become the projects. Also, we have a new fire chief. The old fire chief I had issues with on LGBT training. This new fire chief here, I stress to everybody that's gonna vote for him tonight, that I stress not only to get LGBT training on a computer, but they need more LGBT training in the workforce. Not everybody on that fire department and that police department is heterosexuals. We have LGBT people on there. We need them to come out and feel comfortable with themselves on a workforce environment and come out and say, yes, I am gay or lesbian or whatever the case might be, and there will not be no retaliation. We do have problems on the LGBT force, on the police department force, and on the fire department force, and we need those issues to come out clear. So therefore, those LGBT firefighters and police officers can come out and be clean with their stuff on the police and fire department force. The fire chief was against the training, the ex-fire chief. I asked council to please work with this new fire chief on LGBT issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra. Folks, welcome.
Tim Stangus, Sioux Falls. Just want to lift up the police department on the job that they do, because it's a job that not everybody can do and that everybody wants to do. After the last meeting we had, I had a few people bring some subjects up to me. It seemed like we were being preached on at the end of the meeting about open and honest government. And they just asked me, what is open and honest government? I told them, I said, well, it's supposed to be open, honest, where you're supposed to know what's going on and how things are done. It'd be nice if we could be open and honest about the ambulance service, on what's really going on. Not candy coating it, not making it look like it's better than it really is, but being able to tell the people the truth. That's open and honest. Another thing that's open and honest, and that really bothers people, and it bothers our newspaper too, is the event center. If we're being open and honest, then the sighting on the event center and what went on the event center should be open and honest. We should be able to see every email. We should be able to see everything that was done on that event center. That's called open and honest. I know if I was mayor, there'd be a lot of things done different. It would be open and honest. The people would know. The city council would know what's going on with the ambulance service, the truth. Would know what's going on with everything that's going on in the city, the budget, everything. But if we're going to talk about open and honest, then let's be open and honest.
Thank you, Tim. David? David?
Greetings. I'm David Zokaitis, and I'm going to be light and happy like normal. Hey, you know, in case you haven't noticed, it's kind of warm outside, and so I wore my tropical shirt to fit with the tropical weather. So anyway, I've got this cute little story, and it starts with a dead light bulb. Interesting way to start a council presentation. Dead light bulb. Oops. Dead light bulb on this car. It's my, looks like a heck of a machine like that, but it's just a Subaru Forester. So I was driving down the road somewhere, and a police officer pulls me over, says, I've got this little problem. Apparently, he thought my car had violated state law 3217-1. Apparently, one headlight was out. Well, I went back and actually read the law, and the law doesn't say that you have to have headlights that work. It just says you have to have headlights. I thought that was pretty funny. But anyway, I've still got 5 headlights if one of them's out, because high beams, low beams, fog lights, plenty of lights on the car. But I still got this ticket. Well, and so I talked to the city attorney and a couple of guys in the police force, and they gave me all this extra information. But it turns out that all of this stuff is kind of extraneous and not relevant, because none of this is on the citation, and, so what if you need low beams during the whatever? It just didn't matter, partially because of this other law that's not on the citation either. And according to this law, you don't even need headlights between this time and that time. And I was between this time and that time, so it didn't matter. So, in other words, the cop gave me a ticket by mistake. Supposedly mistake. Now, if you read these darn things, the officer is filing this charge under penalty of perjury. And that's supposed to be a big deal. I mean, perjury is punishable by years and years in this jail or that jail. And apparently, if you're a cop and you make an accidental mistake and provide false testimony, it's no big problem. Not a big problem for him, but I think it's a problem for me, because if I don't deal with this ticket appropriately, I'm going to jail. Not a good situation. Oh, and another thing that happened that same night. The police officer, he's got his spotlights and his emergency lights, and they're shining in my rear view mirror and going right into my eyeballs, and I'm trying to read this ticket, and I couldn't read it. Told the guy that a few times, asked him to loan me his flashlight. Nah, I'm not interested. It looks really bad if there's a guy with a gun standing outside your car telling you to sign something, and you can't read it. Looks like he's trying to coerce a confession. Not a good strategy. He should have loaned me his flashlight. So I have an issue with that. Now, here's the worst part of the whole deal. After talking to the city attorney and somebody on the police force, I decided that I was going to dispute this ticket because, my car was not in violation. It turns out if you want to dispute a warning ticket, the procedure is to forget about it, and then the government will issue a warrant for your arrest. And then they'll notify you that this warrant is out. Then you go somewhere and you post a bond, and then eventually you get a hearing. But think of what's really going on here. I want to dispute a warning ticket. I want to charge a police officer with not knowing the law. And for that affront to government control, you're going to issue a warrant for my arrest. That's just not okay. Not the way to run a government. So, police should know the law. They should enforce it appropriately. We should remember the Constitution. We should reclaim our government and be a little better to people. Of course, next year when I'm mayor, we'll be able to do some of this stuff. But I'm not quite done. I'd like to finish my presentations with, hey, it's a beautiful world. We can still smile even though there's nonsense going on. Look out, beautiful bike trail. If you look around a little bit more, you might be able to look up and see some beautiful trees with some light shining through, and keep on looking up, and the leaves on branch might look like flowers. So there you have it. Good evening.
Good evening, Mike Gunn, Sioux Falls. I'd like to address, maybe this council should, on the next annexation meeting, should probably instruct the annexation committee to maybe try to do that as a town hall. One of the biggest reasons is because I was at a couple of them, and for about an hour, well, I can't say exactly what time, but for a little while, they do everything they can to tell these people why it's a good idea to annex, or why they can. But the people aren't getting adequate time to be heard. A lot of people move out of Sioux Falls because they don't want the city control. Now with this annexation, people are not happy. I suggest that they start listening to the people of this annexation part. Plus, I think you need to look at whether you can afford to annex, because that is also part of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Son, this goes on every council meeting. It does. Yep. And we still serve. The rewards are much greater than the sacrifices. And I'd encourage you to do it. And sir, yep, this happens every city council meeting, but we still have the best city government in the country. I don't see the value, but obviously the council still does. And you're right. I have been trying to get a change for at least 6 years. I've made no progress. It is what it is. Hopefully someday we'll find a way to make it more productive for not only the council, but for the citizens as well. Because anybody who watched the last 20, 25 minutes certainly got to be struggling with this productivity and why this is so important for this council and for our people. But son, stay engaged, stay positive. Sir, I swear it is one of the best city governments in the country, and this is just part of it. Thank you very much for your input. We appreciate it. Item number 49.
Item number 49 is a transfer of a 2016-17 retail malt beverage license with video lottery terminals from Walters Hi-Ho LLP, Walters Hi-Ho, 1014 East 8th Street, to BRM Ventures LLC, Walters Hi-Ho Tavern, 1014 East 8th Street. Item 50 is a renewal of a 2017-18 retail malt beverage license for BRM Ventures LLC, Walters Hi-Ho Tavern, 1014 East 8th Street. Item 51 is a new 2017 retail wine license for BRM Ventures LLC, Walters Hi-Ho Tavern, 1014 East 8th Street. Item 52 is the transfer of a 2017 retail wine license from Saram Auk Phnom Asian Cuisine, 1010 North Minnesota Avenue, to Phnom Penh LLC, Phnom Penh Restaurant, 1010 North Minnesota Avenue. Item 53 is a transfer of a 2016-17 retail malt beverage license from Saram Auk Phnom Asian Cuisine, 1010 North Minnesota Avenue, to Phnom Penh LLC, Phnom Penh Restaurant, 1010 North Minnesota Avenue. Item 54 is a renewal of a 2017-18 retail malt beverage license for Phnom Penh LLC, Phnom Penh Restaurant, 1010 North Minnesota Avenue. Item 55 is a new 2017 retail wine license for Regal Holdings Incorporated, Crown Casino 1, 4805 West 12th Street. Item 56 is a new 2017 retail wine license for Regal Holdings Incorporated, Crown Casino 2, 4809 West 12th Street. Item 57 is a new 2017 retail wine license for Regal Holdings Incorporated, Paradise Central Casino, 1821 West 12th Street. Item 58 is a new 2017-18 packaged malt beverage South Dakota Farm Winery license for Ashna LLC, Ashna Asian Mart, 4713 East Arrowhead Parkway, pending final inspections per health. Item 59 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Catering America, Chef Dominique's Catering, to be operated at DocuTap 101 South Phillips Avenue, Suite 300, for a social on June 7, 2017. Item 60 is a special one-day wine license for Senior Citizen Services Incorporated, Active Generations, 2300 West 46th Street, for an art class on Tuesday, June 13, 2017. Item 61 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine license for the Center for Equality to be operated at Josiah's Coffee House and Cafe, 101 South Reed Street, for a sponsor appreciation event on June 15th, 2017. Item 62 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine license for the Center for Equality to be operated at Terrace Park, 1100 West 4th Street, for the Sioux Falls Pride Festival on June 17th, 2017. Item 63 is various retail malt beverage, South Dakota Farm Winery, packaged malt beverage, and packaged malt beverage, South Dakota Farm Winery license renewals for 2017-18 to be operated at various locations in the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, identified as Exhibit E.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. Items 49, 50, and 51 are all requests for Walters Hi-Ho. The first is the transfer of the malt beverage license due to a change of ownership, and item 50 is the renewal for the upcoming year, and item 51 is just adding the wine license for that same business. 52 and 53 are transfers of license for Panam Asian cuisine and the renewal of the malt beverage that accompanies that. Items 55, 56, and 57 are all new wine license for Regal Holdings at 3 separate casinos. Those particular casinos already hold a malt beverage license, and they just merely want to add wine. Item 58 is a new package license for a new Asian Mart on Arrowhead Parkway. 59 through 62 are all special one-day requests that meet the state law requirements. And item 63 are the last of the renewals. However, these renewals have underage convictions in the last 12 months. There are 5 businesses that have failed the underage compliance sting, and each business has a representative here tonight to speak with you, and each business has provided the security management plan, which is made available to you on the electronic agenda. And I'll call them forward if you would like me to.
Council Chair Kiley, did you want us to proceed with their comments first, or did you want to approve the other ones and then save the last one?
Yes.
Your call, sir.
I think I believe that's what Councilor Erickson is about to suggest
Oh,
here.
Council Vice Chair, my apologies.
You're
Council
okay.
Vice Chair Erickson.
I'll make a motion to approve items 49 through 62.
Okay.
Second, Urbanbach.
There's been a motion to approve all the items through item 62 by Councilor Vice Chair Erickson, seconded by Councilor Urbanbach. Thank you both. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Urbanbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Thank you. Councilor Erickson, Council Vice Chair Erickson.
And Jamie, if we can bring up each of the applicants, I know they're just listed here for us, so I guess we can start with Casey's Retail. In the past, I guess for those who are here, that we will bring up each one. Traditionally, again, in the past, we ask what happened, what is going to prohibit it from happening again, and any other questions that the council has, and then any potential consequences of that person that sold to the underage during that time. I understand some had some previous, but they're under different ownerships now when those stings took place. And so if we could have the representative from Casey's come forward first, please.
Sure.
Good evening.
I'm Tammy Johnson. I'm the area supervisor for 4 of the 7 Casey's stores here in Sioux Falls. About 6 months ago, I believe the Burnside location failed a sting. And since that has happened, that employee, we actually didn't terminate her, but we suspended her for 7 days without pay, and we did retraining every 2 weeks since for every Casey's location here in Sioux Falls now. We also implemented the BARS program, where we have a company that goes to our stores 2 to 3 times in a month and does stings for us to see if our people are complying with our stings. And I'm happy to say that's been going very well, and I believe that's what's been helping the last times that there's been city stings.
Good.
Thank you.
Tammy, thank you. Any questions of Tammy? Tammy, thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate it.
The next one on our list is Hy-Vee Gas.
Colin.
Colin Benega, our employee, had actually rung up the purchase, had asked for the ID, did not index. Our system actually prompts the cashier to index the date of birth in the system. The employee had the ID in their hand, and they hit the enter key to bypass the system. As of today, our system store-wide in the main store, A and C store, every age-restricted sale, whether it's tobacco, alcohol, or lottery, now has to have your ID scanned. So if any council member or Mr. Mayor comes into our store, you now have to provide your ID and physically have it scanned. There are a few people who are obviously of age who refuse to have their ID scanned, and there is only 15 members of our management team that can approve that, and they have all been TAM trained at this time. The employee was terminated. It's right in our policy handbook. If they make an underage sale, they are terminated at that time. So,
Thank you.
Councilor Bach?
Thank you. Just clarification, because I am a proud Hy-Vee shopper and I get carded every time. Is this only at your store on East 57th Street that you have that requirement to scan at the C store and the main store?
I can't speak for the other 6 stores in town. At my store, yes.
Okay.
Whether you're 0 or 110, you will provide an ID to be scanned.
Great. Thank you very much.
Councilor Rolfe?
She covered it.
Very good, thank you. Councilors, any other? Yes, Councilor Silberg, sir.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question. So did I understand right? She looked at the ID but didn't scan it?
Our employee, yes, they had the ID in their hand. They did, retired math teacher, tried to do the math in their head.
Okay.
Deemed it of age and sold by hitting the enter key. Okay. It's not even possible in the store right now.
Okay.
Has to have a supervisor override.
Thank you.
Colin, I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Next one on the list is Pilot Travel Centers on North Granite Lane.
Good evening. Matthew Leslie, General Manager at Flying J, or Pilot Travel Centers. The employee that did this, I was actually there that day and got called. I was stocking the cooler, got called up front, and immediately was informed by the officer that he did an underage sale. He admitted to me that he didn't ask for ID. So at that particular point, our company policy is termination right then. So he immediately at that point, within about 15 minutes after we were done, I took him in back, explained to him what he did, explained the violation, and released him at that point. Our system does a couple different things, and it's been put in place for lottery. It's been put in place for alcohol, tobacco, for them to scan their ID. It's probably the best practice for us. It's what I ask our cashiers to do. We do have an option, though, to hit age okay, but it does list the actual age. If you were born after this time, it is not legal for you to sell it. So, again, it is stressed. We have testing. We have alcohol testing that we do when they're hired. They're required to take it. I immediately had all the other cashiers and managers in my store at the time retake the test to be recertified. And we haven't, we were spotted. I've been there almost 3 years, and this is the first one, and I was very ashamed that day. It was not a good deal for me. So, and I got kids, and I don't need kids buying alcohol. It's just not good. So, as a whole, they all know that it's not what they need to be doing. So, we follow up with it. It's there, and we can retest at any point if we feel like we need to with them.
Councilor Rolfe?
You said that you have an age okay button. Do you still have that button?
I cannot remove it because it's company-wide, but it is a requirement with me and my team. They're to sign it. They're to scan IDs. And the math is done for them on the screen. So if they look at the ID and like they did at the other store, it's already there. So they're making a conscious decision at that point to break the law, and at that point we don't need them anyway. So we do release immediately.
Thank you.
Matthew, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Next one on our list is Coda Corner on North Sycamore.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Akhilesh Trivedi. I go by Al Trivedi. And this thing happened before I took over the store, and I took over February 16th of 2017. And I believe this thing happened like in January sometime. And I was aware of that, for that news. And I think that employee, immediately she quit right away, as soon as she did that. When I took over, that was my first priority is underage tobacco, sale or any alcohol or anything, which requires identification and the date of birth. So that was one thing. Also, I trained my staff, and we have put incentive program, which is, if we pass this thing, and then we will give you $50 cash card, for any store. So that way, and it does help us, and we check right now, regardless of age, we check their ID, unless we see and we know that, they are coming every day and they look like more than, 60 years old. So then we just let them go. Otherwise, we do check the ID. So.
Thank you.
Got to know what 60 years old look like.
You, baby.
Oh.
Alish, thank you very much. So you actually use positive reinforcement by providing them a cash incentive if they pass?
Correct.
Oh, very interesting.
Correct, yes.
Thank you, Alish. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next one is quick and easy. And thank you, by the way, for being here. I understand this was prior to you taking ownership. So you get to, unfortunately, walk through the process of something that you weren't under ownership at that time. So thanks for being here. Quick and easy on West Madison Street.
Thank you, council members. Good evening. My name is Singh, Amandeep Singh Mangat. And unfortunately, like Jamie told me, this happened before I took over. This happened, I took over the store on November 4th, 2016. So since then, we've been aware of the situation, what happened in the past, and we've been carding everybody. And fortunately, there is already a button in place in the system where we have to manually check the ID, and after checking the ID, we have to press yes or no. So not only we check the ID, I told my employees to match the face exactly with the ID. If it's the same person, so has to be the ID policy is in place for everybody. Like Hy-Vee is doing it, I shop at Hy-Vee, so we have to, we are IDing everybody. And this is in the policy that if anyone being caught selling the underage tobacco or liquor will be terminated on the spot. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you also for being here as well, since it was before the time you took ownership over. So
we hope it never happens.
Yes.
Thank you.
Singh, thank you. Appreciate it. Council Vice Chair, would you be willing to make any motions?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve.
Second roll.
Thank you.
And if I could
Please, Council Vice Chair.
ask a question of Jamie before you wander off, I'm sorry. And just as I was looking at these 5 in a year, and we obviously would like to see 100% compliance throughout the time, but I'm curious how many stings were done, and of them, obviously 5 were. Would you have that information? I'm sorry. Or an approximate. Do they try to go out and do 100? Do they try to go out and do 50? I'm just kind of curious where the statistics fall with that.
I believe it's about 26 to 27 that they try to do. They do them by quadrants. And I believe they do them about every other month, sometimes more. It just kind of depends on how much time they have, as far as I know. So,
thank you. And again, we obviously want to see 100% success on them, but just wanted to put in perspective about how many for myself were done in a year for that reason. So, thank you.
Councilor Seabrook.
I think you just answered. I was just going to see what the time frame. This is it for the last year. This is everybody.
Sort of.
Okay.
There may have been alcohol or specific for liquor, but now those will come before you in the fall. So this is for the beer only. Now, I don't know off the top of my head. There may have been 2 more within this last 12 months, but again, they probably were for the liquor. But it's a lot better than it was when I first started. I will tell you that. So, if that's helpful at all.
Thank you.
Council Chair Kiley.
Jamie, at what point are they notified if they pass?
I believe it is done immediately if the, this is probably more a police officer question, but I believe there's certain notifications that they have to go through. They have to notify the person there obviously knows, and then I believe they have to notify the manager, which I give them that information, and sometimes it's by letter, and they have to mail it to them, but it's probably within a couple of days that the owner or the manager on file that I have on file knows that they either passed or failed. So.
Okay, so it is possible then if they have passed that they could then immediately identify the clerk that actually passed the thing for. I really like the idea of the incentive versus the stick. I mean, you all have penalties involved, and that's commendable, but the incentive, I think, goes that extra. That could make a big difference. So, yeah, thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
There's been a motion to approve these items. Has been seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Thank you. Item 64.
Item 64 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 7800 West 60th Street from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District. Petition number 6360-2017, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval. 7-0.
Jason Bieber representing Planning and Building Services. This is an application, and the owner of this property is Mike Thurman. It is located at the southwest corner of West 60th Street and South Colburn Avenue in the southwest portion of Sioux Falls. It's roughly 2.24 acres in size. The purpose of this specific application is they are looking at subdividing this 2.24 acres into 5 lots and then constructing one twin home on each of those 5 lots.
Thank you, Jason. Folks, this is a second reading. Did anybody want to engage the council on this topic? Councilors?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Kylie.
Councilor Rolfing has made a motion to approve item 64, seconded by Council Chair Kylie. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Item 65.
Item 65 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 5501 North Quarry Avenue from the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District to the I1 Light Industrial District, petition number 6581-2017, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 7-0.
The applicant here is Tim Kurbis. The owner is Granite Valley Holdings. Excuse me. It is located north of I-90 and then east of North Cliff Avenue. That's roughly 1.57 acres in size. The purpose of this specific rezoning is the applicant would like to construct a warehouse and wholesale retail business on this parcel.
Jason, thank you. Folks, again, a second reading. Did anybody want to engage the council? Councilors?
Move to approve.
Second, Selberg.
Council Chair Kylie has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Selberg. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Thank you, Council. Item 66.
Item 66 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 4300 North Westport Avenue from the AG Agricultural District to the S1 General Institutional District, petition number 6586-2017, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 7-0.
The applicant here is Bill Hoskins with Siouxland Heritage Museum. This property is located northwest of the Sanford Sports Complex up on Westport. It's roughly 5 acres in size. The purpose of this specific rezoning is this will be the future site of the museum archive building.
Thank you, Jason. Did anybody want to engage the council on this topic? Council?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Staley.
Councilor Box made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Staley. Yes, Councilor Starr.
Great. Jason and maybe Mr. Hoskins too. There's a small strip, or it appears to be a small strip that will remain ag land. What would be the use of that piece of property in that strip to the north?
Well, the original, I believe it was 30 acres, was subdivided. The county purchased 5 acres, and the rest of that is all owned by Sanford now. So I'm assuming it's going to be future use of the sports complex.
How much area is it? I guess I'm trying to judge from the aerial
It's pretty-
photograph.
To the north of this parcel is probably where you're going to get that street where they put the 60th Street
Oh,
through.
gotcha.
It's
That
probably
makes
what's going to
sense.
happen in the future, but they own everything then to the east and to the south of their existing property.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. Thank you.
Councilors, thank you. A roll call vote, please. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Councilor Buck, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to make sure, Mr. Hoskins, did you have anything to add to that? Okay, he's saying no. Thank you. We have the correct information, in other words. Thank you.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson. Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Thank you. Item 67.
Item 67 is a first reading to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, June 20th, 2017 at 7:00 p.m. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota declaring certain real property of the city surplus and authorizing the disposition thereof.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is the first reading. When a government agency goes to sell a piece of property, there's a state law process that guides it. The first is to declare it surplus, and that's what we're here tonight for, and then the second reading will be forthcoming. If you approve that the land is essentially surplus, then we will go to an approved means to sell it, and then we'll be bringing back that offer to you. So there's several steps. This is the very first step. There's a subject piece of property that the city purchased in February of 2015. If you recall, in 2015, we realigned that intersection because we had a series of accidents that we, for a long time, wanted to make sure we could line up those drivers. That construction project's been done. That house has been raised. We've set aside land for a future right turn lane, a bus stop, and a potential monument sign that could direct people into the downtown with all the development that's occurring. And so our ask for you tonight is to take this to second reading so we can now surplus it. It's no longer needed for public right-of-way, and we're here to answer your questions.
Councilor Mock.
Thank you, Director Cotter. What remind us how much space is it again, and then what might it be used for? Is it house-worthy, or what would it be?
Well, right now we purchased the house and that land for $120,000. We've done an appraisal, and the appraisal of the remaining remnant, which is about 7,000 square feet, is about $55,000. It will have an access point, and so it's today zoned for residential. It will probably have the most value to the two adjacent properties. And so our real estate team's recommendation is to go through the process and then accept sealed bids. But it will have an access point, and so there is a market for it that we would hope that the appraisal is a good opinion of value.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Mark, thank you for staying this late. I appreciate it. Council, would anybody want to make a motion on this?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second.
Councilor Buck's made that motion, second by Council Chair Kylie. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. And to be clear to the people watching, that was just setting a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, June 20th. Thanks, Council. Item 68.
Item 68 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Dolly Farm Village Addition. Planning Commission recommends approval 7-0.
The applicant here is Gary Andrish, the owner of Smith Development Company. This is located northwest of the Rosa Parks School out here on 26th Street. It's roughly 8.9 acres in size, and the purpose of this is to subdivide the 8.98 acres into 23 lots. It is zoned for single-family or twin homes. I believe the applicant is looking at constructing single-family in that specific area.
Good. Jason, thank you. Did anybody want to engage the council on this topic, this resolution? Thank you. Councilors?
Move to approve.
Second.
Rolfing.
Council Chair Kiley's been a motion to approve this item, second by Councilor Rolfing. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Councilor Sankey, that has passed 7-0. Item 69, please.
Item 69 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Gulf Phase 5 addition. The Planning Commission recommends approval 7-0.
This is a preliminary subdivision plan that goes along with the second reading for item number 64. This is Mike Thurman's property, and he is looking at subdividing that little over 2 acres for the 5 lots to put a twin home on each of the lots.
Jason, thank you. Did anybody want to engage the council on this topic? Councilors?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Erickson.
Thank you, Councilor Rolfing. Thank you, Councilor Erickson. If there's no discussion, a roll call, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Council Vice Chair Erickson, my apologies. Item 70.
Item 70 is a resolution designating the official newspaper for the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Welcome, Tom.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Tom Greco, and I'm here to talk about the resolution obviously before you. I do recommend up front that we designate the Argus Leader as the official newspaper for the City of Sioux Falls. I'll provide some information and background here. By statute, each municipality is required to designate an official city to designate an official newspaper for a period of time not less than 12 months by resolution. This is according to Codified Law 9-12-6. This particular resolution before you covers the time period July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2019, a period of two years, as was our previous version of the resolution passed in 2015. Also by statute, all legal and other official notices shall be published in a legal newspaper as defined by South Dakota Codified Law, Chapter 17-2. Just some examples of our legal and other official notices are notices of public meetings, notice to bidders, rezones, CUPs, alcohol notices, minutes, ordinances, and many, many others. Chapter 17-2 goes on to articulate the criteria for a legal newspaper. No publication is a legal newspaper for publishing legal and other official notices unless for at least 1 year prior to publication of such notices, the newspaper meets certain criteria. I don't intend on covering each one of these criteria, but I should point out that they can be found within the select statutes that I provided to you within your packet. Also within your packet is a letter from the Argus Leader stating their rates, which I'll get to in a moment. But among those statutes is STCL 17-2-2.5, which states in part that in order to maintain legal newspaper status, the newspaper shall publish and submit to the Secretary of State before January 1st of each year a sworn statement of ownership and circulation. Presently, the only such filing for a newspaper published in the city, as required by SDCL 9-12-6, is the Argus Leader. We've had a very long relationship with the Argus Leader as our official newspaper. I now want to provide a little more detail about the proposed designation, along with some information from this and the past several years for some context. The city publishes various items every single week, most typically on Fridays and Saturdays. Some examples of publication, as I already mentioned, are notices, alcohol notices, minutes, ordinances, and again, many, many, many others. So far this year, the city is publishing 20 to 60 items per month at an average cost of $5,654 per month. All affidavits that we received are logged and checked against monthly invoices, consequently by Tamara up there. Thus far in 2017 through May, the city's expended $28,273 on legal and other official publications. In recent years, and you can see from the chart that I have before you, we've spent between $66,000 and $78,000 on publications. I'm showing this chart obviously to indicate that, but I also included 2010 to show that costs understandably increase over a longer period of time due to rate changes in the volume of publications. The Argus Leader is still interested in serving as the city's official newspaper, as you can see from the correspondence that I provided to you. The rates proposed for your information are the same as they were in June of 2014 when the designation was considered that year. The rates also below the maximum allowable fees, which is $6.23 per inch, according to administrative rule. You'll also note that circulation, as provided by the Argus, is listed as 19,568 for weekdays and 31,468 for Sundays. I should point out that SDCL 17-2-2.2 requires, in terms of circulation only, a paid circulation of at least 200. The same chart obviously includes some of our resolutions from previous years. I've indicated on there the cost that we've paid for the publications over the years, again for context. And I also included, although it wasn't presented to the council in previous years, usually what's presented is readership, but I think it's more proper because the statute refers to circulation as circulation. So I gathered those circulation numbers from those official statements submitted to the Secretary of State. So as you can see, despite the fact that the population of the city is growing and circulation has gone down a bit, we're still committed, obviously, to carrying out that portion of the law to ensure that we publish those notices. With that in mind, I would recommend your adoption tonight. Thank you.
Tom, thank you very much. Folks, is there anybody in the audience who wants to engage the council on this topic? Councilors? Councilor Staley?
Tom, on that total distribution, would that be the circulation there?
So circulation, there are three figures to look at. Their total circulation, I think, I cannot verify, but that is the actual circulation in newspapers that get out to people. So the total number of copies that are printed each issue, and that's an average up there, is what physically comes out of the press, minus the electronic copy.
But they're not, because we've got two figures for daily and Sunday. So
right, and the Sunday is usually an average.
Oh, okay.
With the others, with the weekday.
So shouldn't it be 31 plus 19? Or you're saying, the 31, you're saying an average of the Sundays kind
right,
of
I guess
shaved off.
What I tried to articulate before is that the letter we received this year, rightfully so because they haven't done their final circulation statement, what was provided to me by their advertising director, who couldn't be here tonight, were those two figures at the bottom, the weekday circulation and the Sunday circulation. The circulations that you see above from previous years I received from the Secretary of State's office based on filings that they had, and it's just a different presentation of the calculation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The information that we pay to publish in the newspaper, and I'm not arguing with that idea. I just am looking at the ratio of citizens who actually have access to the newspaper, and I realize they can go to the library and get it and all that kind of stuff. Is all of the information that we publish in the newspaper also available online so that I wouldn't have to have a paid subscription?
There is a portion in the online version of the Argus Leader where you can access public notices. Now, I will just, as for disclosure, we don't check that in particular. What we check in our office, what Tamara checks, is that we get those affidavits of the printed publication because that's what the law requires. But there is a section on their homepage for public notices.
Right, okay, there is on the Argus Leader page.
Correct.
Which is a pay-per-view kind of thing after a certain number. My question really, Mr. Greco, is do we have it on the city website as well? I mean, is it a duplication so that we have it on the city website for people for free?
For all of our public notices, I would have to get back to you, and I will. But I know the things that we publish out of my office, for example, are simply records of these meetings and the ordinances. And then the other departments, you'll typically find notices on their website, but I could not say with 100% certainty that everything that is published in the newspaper is somewhere on our website. But I will get back to you and I'll do some research. It might take a little while.
That's fine. Just curiosity. Thank you.
Council Chair Kelly.
What day of the week are public notices usually published?
We very typically publish on Fridays and Saturdays. The Saturday publications are usually the items from this meeting that we're sitting in right now. So on Friday, basically all of our notices of public hearings and things of that nature. There are some exceptions, obviously, throughout the year. All of our election publications are published on Thursday. Just in the event there's an issue, we'll be able to make sure it gets in by Saturday.
My thought is there any way that instead of Saturday or Thursday, it could be published on Sunday where we get little bigger bang for our dollar?
A lot of times I think A lot of times, the publication days are set based on the requirements stated in law about the amount of time that people need to be provided notice. And there are a wide range. I believe the county generally does theirs on Friday or Saturday. And I think there's just some parity and continuity in terms of when they're done, but that's something we could look at.
Thank you.
Councilor Steele?
Two more questions. Following up on Councilor Erpenbach's question, could it be on the city website?
These items all can be on the city
Okay.
website. Generally, we send
don't
them
know if
to
they
them
are, but
in a
they
document.
could be. And the second thing, I'd like you to explain to our listeners, our citizens, how does the shopping news fall into play when we're talking about newspapers?
Yes, and that comes up frequently. I guess the first thing that I would start with, kind of going toward the back end of Chapter 17-2 in state law, they are required to submit those statements of statements of ownership and circulation, meaning that they meet the requirements and the criteria that are set forth in there. So some of the things that are critical and that have come up before are things like not just circulation. So obviously something like the Shoppers News has a circulation of over 200, but over half of these subscriptions, half of the circulation needs to be a paid subscription, things like that. It's also news content. There's a certain requirement for the amount of news, the number of pages, what's dedicated on a yearly basis to non-paid content, i.e. news, so on and so forth. So hopefully I could provide a summary for you, but those statutes that I provided do have that criteria in there.
Thank you.
And those are available on the left too. You're right.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, Councilor Vice Chair.
I'm curious if we get any data from the Argus Leader showing how many times they're accessed, like how many times somebody clicks on our open meeting things that we have on there.
I
Does
don't,
anyone?
but I can ask.
I would be interested to see that just specifically for the city. I mean, I'd be interested to see the matrix for the county, the city, and just kind of compare. But I'm curious how many times they're clicked on. Or I know we can tell that from our own websites when they're pulling data. So I was just curious if that was accessible. Thank you.
I will get back to you.
Well, Council, would anybody want to make a motion on this item?
I move to approve Staley.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Staley's made a motion to approve this item, second by Councilor Erpenbach. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 71.
Item 71 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rescheduling the business of the city for events in 2018.
Mr. Mayor and council members, Tom Greco, City Clerk. This particular resolution, as we're getting ready for next year and publishing our schedules, to me it just makes sense given the fact that on April 10th of 2018 and May 1st of 2018, April 10th is our regular city election. May 1st may be a runoff election. I think it would be prudent at this point to move each one of those meetings on our calendar, again, for planning purposes, to the right by one day, so to April 11th and May 2nd. And so I request your approval.
Thanks, Tom. Anybody want to speak to this item in the audience? Councilors? Councilor Staley?
Oh, well, on that same subject, I know this year we had a chamber issue where we changed the meeting night. We've changed our night for different reasons. Explain to us, how much lead time do we need to have?
Well, ideally, we'd want as much lead time as we can, but generally we want, I would say, at least 3 months in order to change something, because when we change our meeting dates, it impacts planning and some of their public notices. We were just talking about things like that. But I would say we want at least 3 months before we change a meeting date to make sure that we provide the least the least friction with other meetings.
Do
But
we have that
obviously-
chamber one on here too then? Or
No,
is
we
that-
don't. And the reason I don't is because right now, most of you are familiar with, we hand out these planning calendars each year. We just want to get this right for you. We post it on the city website so that other city staff can plan for the year. And I guess in this case, we just know for a fact that we will be having an election those Tuesday nights and just want to take that step now to make it clean for the entire year.
Thank you.
Council, would anybody want to make a motion on this item?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second.
Vice Chair Erickson made that motion, seconded by Councilor Chair Kiley. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes. That passed 7-0. Thank you, Council. Item 72.
Item 72 is a report of the May 31st, 2017 Notice of Transfer of Appropriations within Major Organizational Units.
Thank you. Item 73.
Item 73 is a motion advising, giving consent, and approving the mayor's appointment of Brad Goodroad as Fire Chief.
Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Bill O'Toole, Director of Human Resources. Just a quick background for maybe some of the viewers and those in the audience with regard to this business item on the agenda tonight. Pursuant to the city charter, the requirement is that any appointment by the mayor of any director becomes effective only upon the advice and consent of the City Council. And as you all know, on May 19th, after an internal search process, the mayor announced that he was appointing Division Chief Brad Goodroad as the city's next fire chief. I want to just give a quick background again. I know some of you are already familiar with this, but I will be brief. Division Chief Goodroad has over 23 years of experience with Sioux Falls Fire Rescue and has held the ranks of firefighter, fire apparatus operator, captain, battalion chief, and division chief, which sits, that's the position right below the chief. He's got a Master of Science degree in Administrative Studies from USD. He's completed the Executive Fire Officer Program through the National Fire Academy and is credentialed with the Chief Fire Officer designation. I highly recommend and endorse Division Chief Goodroad for this appointment, concur with the mayor, urge your support tonight, and I know he's excited to answer some questions, as would I if you have any of me. And with that, I'll turn it over however you'd like to proceed.
Very good. Before I go to the council, is there anybody in the audience who wanted to speak to this item? Welcome.
Bruce Danielson. I've been doing a lot of research on the ambulance situation, as I talked about earlier. And today on my way to the north side of town, I came across an accident where 5 people were injured. So I looked at my pulse point. There's a program that I can have on my phone, and it's called Pulse Point. So I thought I'd just kind of check, because I also now on my smartphone can have the scanner running.
Mr.
And
Danielson,
this is all part of this discussion that we're going to have here, because I would like this council to ask the new chief, because we know he's going to be chief, I want him to be able to come up and explain to this body what he's going to do to help fix the 980 situation. This is incredibly important for this community. There's a lot of people that are really upset about this. And this body has decided that what we're finding in actuality is fake news. And the town is very tired of it. And so I am here for the 5 minutes that I'm allowed to bring this up so that you can have an intelligent conversation with the new chief before he is appointed and selected.
Mr. Danielson, thank you. We'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
So we have a situation today where there was 5 people injured today,
Mr.
and only
Danielson.
1 ambulance available, and we had 5 980s that were sitting there.
Mr. Danielson,
Thank you.
I'd ask you to keep it relevant to the topic
It's
at hand.
extremely relevant.
Okay, very good, sir. Have a good night. Welcome.
Good evening, Mike Gunn again. I'm not going to say that the new fire chief's going to be good or bad, but did we take any other applications besides just appointing? I'd like to know if we had the applications out for public or other areas that we may have looked at before we did this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Bill, would you explain to Mr. Gunn and along with the rest of the people that there was an application process?
Yes, the city utilized its normal hiring procedures for this. We did do an internal search process. There were 8 internal applicants for the position, and all of them were interviewed. And the panel did recommend the top candidates to the mayor for his consideration and that process as well.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council on the topic of Brad Goodroad as fire chief? Very good. Thank you. Councilors, any thoughts on this topic? Councilor Vice Chair Erickson?
Thank you. First of all, if you would like to come up, and I know that you have offered to sit down with all of us, and I think as many of us could do that in the timeline we did, and I thank you for your time to sit down and talk to us about that. During our conversation, one of the things that we discussed was kind of your expertise of reviewing the processes and looking at how to make things better, and I can't remember the correct terminology of this training that you did, but I found it really interesting as we just had a sit-down dialogue over some of the things that you studied and you looked into with your additional training. And if you could just touch very briefly on that, I just think it's relevant as far as your desire to continue learning, your desire to implement things that work and streamline the process. It was really... It's really interesting. So I just would hope that maybe you could just discuss just a little tiny bit of that.
Sure. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. And I believe you're talking about my 100-day transition plan.
That's it.
Yeah. In preparing for the position, I've always felt that just because you've had success in one position doesn't necessarily guarantee success in the next. You really have to prepare for that and prepare for what those things are for that position. So one of the biggest things I did to prepare was to create this 100-day transition plan. I started working on that right away when the former chief announced that he was going to retire. And in that I have broken into phases of what I plan to do, who I plan to communicate with. And then I also did a SWOT analysis on that, and that is your strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats for the department. And this is what I see at the department, where I see it at this point. And from that, I created a list of focus and opportunity for the department. And what I would like to do with that is I'm going to bring that to our chief officers and really make that more of the department's areas of focus and areas of improvement, so it isn't just mine. I know there's things that I'm probably missing in there, and once I meet with them and discuss that, then we can really refine that list. And I think it really goes in conjunction with our strategic plan. We have a new strategic plan that we're going to have to roll out this year for 2018 through 2022. And, a lot of those areas of focus will be in that. So
thank you. And thank you for going further with that. One of the question, or I didn't ask this necessarily, it came up in our conversation, but as we discussed, I asked the timing of just when the applications came in and whatever. And so I think it's important to know that the application process was closed prior to anything that you read in the media or the news as far as any of the unfortunate situation that happened previously, that process was already closed and done and moving through this process of looking for a new fire chief. And so I think it's important to note that process was closed already. I believe that's public knowledge on the website anyways. But I just wanted to make sure to note that and really appreciate your time sitting down with us and continue the conversation as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Bach.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. It's good to have you here. I appreciate that you're taking time to speak with us. One of the questions that, and I think one of the citizens alluded to it, is that idea of we really did hire within, and it really has been, it's a long-term strategy in the City of Sioux Falls to do that. And we raise up our own, essentially. We talked about the level of experience that you have here in Sioux Falls. And it's not that uncommon nationwide, really, with fire departments to do that. Can you talk about your philosophy about creating or coaching new leaders and where you think that might go with you as chief? What's kind of the philosophy behind that leadership practice, and then where you think we're headed with that?
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's really important, I think, in public safety to hire within. And we have a lot of different mentoring things, and what we really don't have is a formalized professional development plan. And that is in my 100-day transition plan. And one of the things that I want to focus on is creating a true, formalized, written out professional development plan for individuals and for the organization. So that when members come in, they know as a firefighter, they can say, okay, I want to be a captain before I retire. And they can clearly see, okay, these are all the certifications I need. these are the areas that I need to focus on. This is education. I need to get, I need to go to the National Fire Academy for these classes, whatever it is. They can clearly see what their path would be and start into that path. And again, that information is kind of there, but it's just not in a packaged form, and that's one of my priorities is to get that done.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, just kind of a follow-up, then talk about that idea. What's the advantage to Sioux Falls of hiring from within? And what's sort of the, maybe is there a disadvantage to hiring from somewhere else?
You know, I think anytime you get a new position, someone in a new position, you're going to get a new view and a new, energy. So that, to me, that doesn't matter whether it comes from within or out. You're gonna get that. I think from within, you get an institutional knowledge and a knowledge throughout the city. You have as a division chief for 3 years, I've had the opportunity to work with other department heads and other members of the different departments and throughout the city. And I think that just gives you a real advantage to understand the workings within your department and understand your people and understand what some of the priorities are. If you have someone that comes from outside, there's no way they'd be able to develop those strengths and weaknesses and the plan that I put forth. They just wouldn't know that. They could do that once they spent some time and worked with people, but this way it allows me to really understand that right from the start.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Councilor Steele.
I appreciate the time we had to visit. Well, I think it was a few weeks ago. And piggybacking off of what Councilor Erpenbach said, I also respect that you are taking a risk by taking this position on. I think the public needs to know that because of a new change in policy, that you are serving at the pleasure of the mayor. So if indeed the next mayor would choose to have a different division or fire chief, you're out, right? We talked about that. Yes. So that's thank you for stepping up and doing that. I wanted to ask you just to explain, since you're going to be the person in charge of the fire program, fire and rescue, explain, and we're talking about ambulances here, just explain to us what your staff is going to be able to do to help the ambulance, because I think people are kind of confused as to what fire and rescue can do when they arrive on the scene. So tell us that.
We're dispatched to, the higher priority calls, and everybody on our department is EMT level trained and able to operate in that level. There's several things we've done in collaboration with other departments, PD and Paramedics Plus, and we've developed pit crew CPR. That's just an example of things that we can do as a collaborative group. What that is it basically gives you a position as you arrive on scene, and allows you what position, what role that is. And then we're able to provide, all the basic life support things that are needed. The only thing we really can't do is transport and some of the higher level paramedic skills.
And you were telling us about the intubation thing, that there's a new procedure that you are going to be able to do?
Right. In the past, paramedics, and they still can intubate, but what we've got now is it's called an iGel, so it's a supraglottic airway. It's really easy to put in, and in fact, that is the first choice that Paramedics Plus is also supposed to use. So when it comes to intubation, it doesn't matter if Sioux Falls Fire is on scene first or if Paramedics Plus, they're going to get the same airway management initially through either agency.
And then we also talked about the limitation on drugs. That's
right. Those are paramedic skills. Yep, that we're not
right. That fire and rescue can't administer some of those things. Yep. But that in some municipalities that might be a possibility.
If there are paramedics and they're able to practice as paramedics within that system.
Within the fire department.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Council Chair Conley.
Thank you. And thank you for your service, and thank you for being here this evening, Division Chief Goodroad. And hopefully soon I can change that title. I just want to also state that I do appreciate the fact that Councilor Staley brought up the bump back clause and the risk that you take in assuming this position. It is not risk-free. I will also say that the bump back clause is one that I did oppose the mayor on, and I did end up in the minority there. But I'm quite certain that this mayor has confidence. Not only does this mayor have confidence in you, but the future mayor and future mayors will have confidence in your service as well. And the advantage of staying within. I definitely agree with you with the institutional knowledge, especially in this case, because we are one out of 35 departments in the nation that have achieved an ISO rating. That's the Insurance Services Office rating of #1. So unless we interviewed a candidate out of one of the other 34 departments, I'm not sure why we would consider somebody outside of our excellent #1 department right here in Sioux Falls. So congratulations on your nomination. Look forward to serving with you.
All right, well, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Starr.
Thank you. Division Chief, probably the last time that anyone will call you that for the foreseeable future after tonight. But I too want to thank you for the great conversation that we had in your office. We were able to go fairly in depth in a number of areas. One that stood out to me that hasn't been addressed yet tonight is in your 100-day transition plan, talking about the diversity of the fire department and your plans of moving forward with that. And if you could, for the citizens of Sioux Falls, maybe expand on your thought process, how important it was to include in your plan, and what you see in the first 100 days and going forward as we look to diversify our ranks.
Sure, you know, our department obviously doesn't reflect the community, and that's the goal. We have a really good diversity and inclusion committee. We have one of our battalion chiefs that's in charge of that committee, and I also attend those meetings. And that committee just seems to be ramping up all the time. They're doing more and more in different ethnic communities, and our goal is to find kind of the leader in each of those communities within the city, and hook up one of the members of that diversity and inclusion committee with that community leader, and really find out from them what it takes to really get our information out and get people to come in and sign up and pass our tests and come in. And then we're also, I think we're missing a little bit of opportunity in our fire prevention when they meet with our grade schoolers every year. I think instead of just a fire safety message there, we could provide some information for them at a young age. So I think that's key at that really young age where they know that, okay, it is okay to be on the fire department, and it is something that they can achieve, and I think that's would be an opportunity for us.
Thank you, Mayor. The other thing is that a big part of your current position with the city is working. You've been an active member of the REMSA board, or at least in an advisory capacity, or at least I've seen in the minutes that you're there quite often and working as part of that team between the entire EMS system. So as earlier was mentioned, it is a big part of your past and your work experience with the city through that. So do you see any challenges or things as part of that teamwork process? I know we had a big pilot program that we made some changes, and do you see anything that system could do to improve itself?
Sure, I think that system is working really well. I think we just need more information, and the more information that we get out to the public and to the council, I think the less questions that we're going to have on some of this. And yeah, through our EMS leadership and through REMSA and the medical board, I attend those as a provider, as one of the providers, and that is where we collaborate and we develop plans for improvements, where we work on system enhancements and work on training and coordination between all the agencies, so that's valuable.
Well, one of the major changes that were made as part of the pilot program that was implemented here around the first of the year was the request for mutual aid. And now that we've gotten a copy of the process of dispatching mutual aid, that responsibility has shifted from the fire captain or the fire rescue personnel on scene. Do you see that's an improvement to move that to someone at Metro Communications, and how that process works?
It absolutely is. Our fire captains on scene, they have a narrow view of what's going on in there. They don't know what's going on the rest of the city. To use kind of an analogy that we've had in the department with that is, Metro is like the air traffic controller. They know where all the planes are, what they're doing. They know when they're going to arrive. They know when they're taking off. And the individual pilots don't know that. So that's similar to what we were dealing with as captains on scene. We didn't know, what the rest of the system is. Now Metro Communications, they know, okay, there's an ambulance at the hospital. They've been there 10 minutes. They know that within a couple minutes they're going to clear, and it allows them to manage those resources so that we aren't pulling outside resources from other communities, their valuable resources, into the city also.
How many mutual aid agreements does the Sioux Falls Fire Department have with other fire departments in the region, roughly?
We have automatic mutual aid agreements with the surrounding fire departments for fire, you know. Sure. So we automatically go out to the surrounding communities.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor. Well, would anybody want to make a motion to approve Division Chief Goodroad as our new chief?
Move to approve.
Second, Erickson.
Council Chair Kiley has made that motion, seconded by Councilor Vice Chair Erickson. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
City of Sioux Falls and the citizens of Sioux Falls, I am very pleased to announce that this City Council has unanimously voted to make Division Chief Brad Goodroad our new Chief Brad Goodroad. Congratulations, Chief Goodroad.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
You're welcome, Chief. Folks, if there's no other items of business tonight, I did want to recognize we've got a scout in the audience tonight who's been here from the very, very beginning. In fact, I actually kind of called on him earlier to encourage him to keep leading. But, son, would you mind just introducing yourself to the council, please? Tell us why you're here.
My name is Carter Frisky from Troop 371 out of Gloria Day, and I'm here to finish my communication merit badge.
It's called the Communication Badge?
Yeah.
Very good. And it was Carter. And Carter, the gentleman beside you all night who's also been here, who is he?
My dad.
That's your dad. What's your dad's name?
John.
Thanks, John, for being here, supporting your son. And we certainly appreciate it. Council, just a quick round of applause for this. You said that's your final badge?
No.
Oh, okay. More to come. Well, thank you for being here tonight. Great job. Council, if there's no other business, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There has been a motion to adjourn. It has been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? This meeting is adjourned, Sioux Falls. Make it a great night.